never mind. Hi. As I don't need to make an introduction, I'm very happy to be here. And here's the thingy. I will very briefly tell you about climate adaptation measures. Basically, you've heard a lot about the energy side of the green transition, but as the developments in the past 10, 20 years have shown, we cannot focus only on energy. We have to look wider. We have to take into account all the connecting areas because the changes in energy sector are just not enough. Plus, the goals that we have, they need more than just switching from fossil fuels to the renewable energy. As you've heard several times today, climate adaptation part is very important in the sustainable energy and climate action planning. But why is that? It's not just about, climate and the environment is the stuff that surrounds the energy sector, but it is actually a more a logical and a strategical approach that we should be more strategic in our preventive measures, because that's how we save the costs. This is how we become more resilient and reduce the vulnerabilities of our societies, of our municipalities, of our citizens and households. So if we look a little bit closer, what is climate adaptation about? Then we can see it has very distinct elements in terms of what can be considered as a climate adaptation and the benefits of addressing this topic. For example, I think all of you have noticed very hot, very cold weathers, floods, very strong winds. Europe and actually a lot of different parts of the world have been on fire, have been flooded, have been, water has been, landslides and different, I would say, natural catastrophes that our societies and our built environment was actually not prepared for. So addressing climate adaptation and having preventive measures in place helps us avoid the destruction that actually comes with these hazardous natural events. Then the economic impact. Very often I've seen the municipalities that we've spoken with and also the organizations be a little bit worried that they don't want to make the investment because in the beginning it's very large investment. But what they fail to think about is actually how much it would cost if they do not make this investment. Of course, it's very hard to assess, but looking into that from a little bit different point of view is very important and would actually sometimes help you guys make a decision. Then energy security, something that we have spoken a lot today, including the climate adaptation measures in the development of the energy sector and diversifying the production elements that we have, the benefits of it is something that we've heard several times today, starting from Ukraine. By diversifying this, we know that we can actually be more resilient and more stable and ensuring the production continuing should something unexpected happen, whether it's a weather or unfriendly neighbor or some other event that we didn't see coming. Then health is something that is actually related to climate change a lot. And very often people don't think about it when they're talking about changing from fossil fuels to renewables. Yes, it's a cleaner environment, but it's a little bit hard to understand how is it connected, how is it close to us. But studies have shown that switching from fossil fuels to more cleaner production methods and use methods of energy, whether it's fuel, heating, or electricity, actually helps to improve the health of our citizens and helps to reduce the health impacts of our climate change destructive effects as well. So it should be considered definitely as one of the aspects why climate change adaptation measures, and actually also not just adaptation, but also mitigation measures should be implemented as part of the green transition policies. Then supporting sustainable development, I would say this is a little bit like a no-brainer, but it's still relevant that if we're sustainable, we're more resilient and less susceptible to vulnerabilities from different climate impacts. Then meeting climate targets. We heard today about a lot of success stories from Europe, from Central and Eastern European countries, as well as from the Western countries. But it is a little bit of shame that nobody said out loud that we are very far from our climate targets that our governments agreed in 2015 to actually cut back our emissions, cut back our spending on fossil fuels, and clean up our environment, because otherwise the effect will be absolutely destructive. So I encourage you to not be afraid and actually look at the targets that we have and speed up the transition, because otherwise it's going to be too late and the train will leave the station and all we are left with is dealing with the consequences of our slow actions. Then, resilience I mentioned several times, but putting into place nature-based solutions and more diverse set of energy production actually helps us deal with these adverse effects of uncertain and unexpected elements from the nature as well as from socio-political aspects. Then long-term cost savings. This is a little bit maybe hard to comprehend sometimes and hard to calculate because it's not very direct. And especially when your politicians are elected only for 2 years or 4 years, they, I would say, sometimes lack the long-term vision. But making the investments now is going to make things cheaper in the long run. And it also will help to prevent certain expenses that you would have going forward as the climate is changing, because I don't think any of us has a question whether it is changing, because it is. And then, of course, global interconnectedness. The good thing about this is that when already some of us are adapting to climate change and taking preventive measures, then it helps the whole grid. And the more actors do this, the stronger the grid will be and the more sustainable and resilient we will be in the face of climate change. And then, of course, social equity. As we all know, and we heard from the energy poverty presentations, it is the vulnerable groups that are hit first and are hit hardest when things are changing rapidly. So we need to take this into account, which means that all the policies and activities need to be just, they need to be equal, and we have to take into account the specifics of different groups in the society. And in conclusion, I would just like to stress a few elements. The climate adaptation plans are absolutely necessary. I would say they are sometimes even more important than just switching from one energy source to another, because it will help us safeguard our infrastructure. It helps us reduce the economic risks, which I would say last winter was a very good wake-up call about the risks of different unexpected things on our electricity market and all the connected areas in the economy. It would help us ensure the energy security should something similar continue or happen again, like Ukrainian war. And in addition, it would also help us protect the public health, which means less expenses on the healthcare. It would also help us support sustainable development, which means cleaner living environment. And it would help us meet the actual climate goals that we have set for ourselves. So it wouldn't be just talk, and it would be actually something that we achieve. And what I also wanted to stress as a final word is that it is not we do our paper, we do our plan, and then it's done. It is an ongoing process. It should be always evaluated changed, adapted as things go forward, as the economy is changing, as the weather is changing, and as our societies are changing thanks to green transition. Thank you.